Have you ever walked into a room and immediately noticed someone? Not because they were the loudest, not because they were the most attractive, not because they were demanding attention. In fact, sometimes it's the opposite. They're quiet, relaxed, almost ordinary. And yet, somehow their presence fills the room. People turn toward them. Conversations seem to orbit around them. Others naturally pay attention when they speak. Most people call this energy, or charisma, or presence, and because those words sound mysterious, we often assume the explanation must be mysterious too. Some people have it, some people don't. End of story. But if you look closely, something strange appears. Many of the people who seem magnetic aren't trying to be magnetic at all. They're not performing confidence, they're not using tricks, they're not calculating every gesture, which raises an interesting question. What if magnetism isn't something you create? What if it's something that's revealed when you stop interfering with it? Because in the boardroom of the brain, what we call energy is often something much simpler: alignment. Today we're looking at the architecture of presence, why some people instantly feel powerful without trying, and how to stop the leaks that drain your mental energy before anyone even hears you speak. Most people think charisma is about what you do: eye contact, body language, voice tone, hand gestures, and those things matter. But they aren't the foundation. Think about a radio signal. When the signal is strong and clear, everything comes through naturally. But when static gets mixed into the transmission, something feels off. You can still hear the message, but you don't fully trust it. Human beings work the same way. Every conversation contains two streams of information: the words and the state behind the words. The interesting part is that people are constantly reading both, often without realizing it. Tiny facial expressions, subtle changes in tone, small inconsistencies, micro expressions, moments where what you're saying doesn't quite match what you're feeling. And when those signals don't align, people feel it. Maybe you've experienced this before. Someone says they're confident, but they don't seem confident. Someone says they're excited, but they don't seem excited. Someone says they're fine, and somehow you immediately know they're not. What you're detecting isn't the words, it's the interference, the internal friction between the performance and the reality. And that's where energy starts leaking. Every time you perform for approval, part of your attention splits. One part focuses on the conversation, the other part focuses on yourself. How do I sound? Do they like me? Am I saying the right thing? Am I being impressive enough? That split creates noise, and people feel it, not consciously, but instinctively. The more noise there is, the weaker the signal becomes, which brings us to something most people misunderstand. The most magnetic person in the room is usually the person who needs the least from it. Think about that. The person desperately trying to be liked rarely feels powerful. The person desperately trying to prove themselves rarely feels confident. The person desperately trying to control the outcome rarely feels present. Because their attention isn't in the room. It's trapped inside their own head. They're negotiating with perception, managing impressions, monitoring reactions. Meanwhile, the most compelling people often appear relaxed. Not because they know everyone likes them, because they aren't spending all their energy trying to make sure everyone does. This creates an important shift. Instead of asking, how can I get them to like me? The question becomes, what is actually happening here right now? Notice the difference. One question points inward, the other points outward. One creates self-consciousness, the other creates awareness. This is where presence comes from, not confidence, attention. Specifically, the ability to remain present in the gap between an urge and a performance. The urge to impress, the urge to please, the urge to prove, the urge to control, and choosing not to obey it. That gap is where magnetism begins. We've talked before about the sovereignty audit, the idea that attention determines ownership. And nowhere is that more obvious than social situations. If your attention is constantly scanning for feedback, you have very little left for presence. Think about how much energy gets spent monitoring yourself. Am I being awkward? Did that joke land? Should I have said that differently? Do they think I'm smart? Do they think I'm interesting? Every one of those questions consumes resources, and those resources have to come from somewhere. Usually they come from awareness. The more attention you spend managing yourself, the less attention you have available for reality, which is why the most present people often seem unusually calm. Not because they're fearless, because they're focused, they're grounded somewhere deeper than the persona, deeper than the social mask. They're operating from what we've previously called the core, the part of you that existed before performance became automatic, before approval became a strategy, before identity became a project. One technique that helps reveal this is something called external mirroring. For the next conversation you have, try something. Stop monitoring yourself completely. Instead, focus 100% of your attention on the other person, their tone, their emotions, their energy, their body language, their pauses, their concerns. Something fascinating happens. The performance loop collapses, and presence naturally increases. Not because you're trying harder, because you're finally paying attention somewhere else. So, how do you reclaim your magnetism? The first step is identifying the mask. Every person has one. The funny one, the intelligent one, the agreeable one, the confident one, the successful one, the caretaker, the rebel. The question isn't whether you have a mask. The question is which one consumes the most energy to maintain. The second step is honesty, not with other people. With yourself. If you're nervous, acknowledge it. If you're insecure, acknowledge it. If you're uncomfortable, acknowledge it. The strange thing about confidence is that it often appears the moment you stop pretending you aren't afraid. Because honesty creates congruence, and congruence creates trust. The third step is reclaiming silence. Most people rush to fill every gap, every pause, every moment of uncertainty, but magnetic people aren't afraid of silence because silence isn't a threat when you aren't performing. It's simply space. Space to think, space to observe, space to remain present. And presence is what people remember, not perfection. Here's the truth. You don't become magnetic by adding features. You don't become magnetic by installing a better personality or memorizing social techniques or trying harder to be impressive. You become magnetic by removing interference, by removing the performance, the approval seeking, the self-monitoring, the noise, because underneath all of that is something surprisingly powerful. A person who isn't divided against themselves. A person whose internal state and external behavior match. A person who isn't trying to manufacture energy. A person who simply has access to it. And that's what people feel. Not confidence, not charisma, congruence. So let me ask you something. Think about a time when you felt completely on. A moment where you weren't thinking about yourself at all. What was the environment? Who were you with? What made that state possible? Let me know in the comments. Let's figure out what creates that signal. Because the hardware is already capable of massive influence. Stop trying to install Charisma 2.0 and start running the original software. I'll see you in the next video.